Hello. I have some important information. It's kind of a long-winded presentation. I hope you stick with it because I think you'll be able to glean some information that might help you, might be a blessing to you. And also it's my own personal opinion and insight, but it also stems on the world. Now, I personally born and raised in America. I've been a believer since I've been a child. So a lot of my opinions are based on my belief as well, but they're mostly based on truth, facts, and righteous thinking. The reason why I say that is so you don't get, you know, thinking, well, I'm going to start preaching. No, I'm not. I am going to tell you a couple things, though, that will enlighten you. Starts out in 1962 when they took the scriptures out of school and state. Now, I'm saying this so you get this picture, you can research it, you can look, you can see the facts of what I'm talking about. It's historical fact that that happened. 1962, they actually said the year before, went through the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is considered the court of the entire nation that speaks for the people. Well, I don't believe it does. I believe it speaks to an agenda of whoever is helping put those people in place. Even now, they have people in place who, well, think about this. A woman doesn't know what a woman is. That's ridiculous, okay? It's skirting and playing games with reality. In other words, not by not admitting the truth, then it doesn't exist. But that's here nor there. But when the court of the lands votes something, it becomes the law, and that, my friends, has a large, overwhelming impact on the people of the nation. Okay? So when they pass that law saying no longer will religion be able to be taught in school or state, the original complaint was only schools. It was the Supreme Court that added the state part into it. That's even more important to understand. The reason why I say that is because this nation was founded on the word of truth. The people that came here from the other countries, from Britain, from Ireland, from Scotland, from Germany, from all the places throughout the entire world, almost every one of those nations were under persecution of religion. That was just one thing. There was many others, but the main one was religion, Christian religion, and the Roman Catholic faith was wiping people out. They were killing them left and right. A lot of them came here with their Bibles in hand, okay, to be free from that religious persecution they were going through by religious zealots, okay? Now, if you follow what I'm saying, you can follow the history, go look at it, because they all came here for a new start. And one of the things in the Constitution is freedom of religion. That's right. So you're free. You're supposed to be free to share your word and practice your religion. But because of the Supreme Courts and other things, that's changed too. So what I'm saying though is 1962 was the beginning and the starting point. It's when you start a race. They used to, years ago, they'd start a race with a gun. Kaboom, you know, a little cap gun. Sheesh, everybody runs. 1962, when they took religion out of school and state, they shot that gun. And now the earth is still in its axis, but the United States has jumped off this cliff and has been free falling ever since. Now, you might disagree with me, you might not, but if you look at everything that transpired after that, it's an overwhelming truth that the curse is overtaking America. You had the death of the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, had all those things in his family that happened relatively close to all that. Then you had a lot of other things happen. The wars, the Vietnam War, 65 is when they started shipping our people over there to be a part of that war, that police action. We lost a lot of people, expended a whole lot of money. And the bottom line was it was it was kind of, I would say, futile because of all the different things that happened and the people that have paid the price. And now the whole time that war was going on from 1962 on, the colleges were preaching anti-American malarkey. They were telling them to boycott. They were telling them to, stand up against the oppressors and all this and that. And they were the hippies. And then came the hippie movement where they were fornicating all over the United States, everywhere and every place, and didn't have no decency and were just making bastard children all over. Matter of fact, there's probably still a whole bunch of people that think they're relatives and relatives of this and that and this and that, and really they're not because of fornication and the hippie movement, drugs, so forth. So, I mean, if you look at that history, you'll see, okay, it's part of this nation's curse, not blessing. Television, that's one of the things that has taken on its own light, where people spend more time watching TV than doing anything else. Their free time, instead of reading or learning or doing something constructive, they watch TV. And I was guilty of that. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm just saying television has desensitized the children. It has caused them to think that it's okay to get divorced and have multiple relationships. It has taught them that murder is not a bad thing, because if you watch television, there's murders all the time, and they show it now in such detail you can't unsee it. Okay, and I mean, when it started, the whole thing that made television sell so well was rebellion, the Marlon Brando age. You know, that's what did it. That's what sold. It was like the Wild Child, the Wild Boys, and the disobedience to the rule of law, but they were considered outlaws and they were considered cool. You know, and there are so many other things. But I'm just using that as an example. Television portrays everything bad against the word of truth. Now let's look a little deeper, because I want to share this with you. Proverbs says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he gets older, he will not depart from it. Okay? Now, I'm not preaching. I'm showing you a fact. Because right now, in the school system, and for the last 50 years, let's see, since the 60s, okay, they've been teaching children to be anti-American. They've been teaching them to be against religious people, against America, against anything that's basically been a fundamental part of the United States of America. I mean, not just a little bit, but a lot. And now, within the last 20 years, they have been pushing the homosexual agenda and having drag queen men dress up like women and read stories to them. Why? Because they're grooming them to be accepted, to accept homosexualism as a way of life instead of rejecting it. Now, why is that bad? If you say you don't know, well, I'll explain it. You probably already got an idea, but I'll tell it to you. Because in this nation, they're pushing abortion. In this nation, they are committing complete and total racism. I'm talking about the politicians, okay? They're pushing transgenderism and they're pushing the homosexual agenda. Look at Biden. He had that party on the White House and it was filled with homosexual people, and they were exposing their parts in public on the White House lawn. That's not righteous. That's not truth. I mean, that's if you're going to teach your children the right things, you need to do the right things. And now in schools, instead of looking at the Bible, they can go to their library and they can get a book that's on their shelves that tells them how to have sex with the same gender. And that shouldn't be. It should not be, but they have done that. And there's people in the school system that are teaching our little children to be aware of their sexuality when they're not even old enough to really understand anything but going potty. You know? It's wrong. It's upsetting too because so many of those people in the end are going to perish. What I mean perish, I mean where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. Because they have been taught as little children in the school systems to reject right thinking, proper righteous ways, morally righteous truths and facts. And they're taught to become anti American, anti establishment. And they're also being taught to become Marxist and socialism. They're pushing all that into schools. Now, not every single school pushes that. There are still states that are still trying to do the right thing and push the right things, but there's a lot of opposition to truth. And they want to change the truth so that they tell these children it's okay to be transgender. It's okay to change your sex if you want to. As a matter of fact, they go out of their way to persuade the children to do that. They can even talk them into becoming homosexuals. I ain't kidding you. I have I had one of my daughters tell me something years ago. She was in school and she was well, I was divorced because I drive a truck and anyway, long story. It was a divorce. And they were living somewhere else. I was living where I was at. I was on a truck driving and just running the roads and pretty much being a slave to paying child support and just trying to make ends meet. But I was talking to my daughter one day, and she said to me, she said, "Dad, I think I'm supposed to be a boy." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I really think I'm supposed to. I talked to my teacher, and she thinks I should really be a boy, that I shouldn't be a girl, but I was born in the wrong sex." And I said, "What?" Now, think about that. It blew my mind that she even said it, but then it blew my mind to even think that she herself accepted that while she was talking. I said, "Don't listen to that person. That person doesn't think about you. That person's thinking about an agenda that has nothing to do with you. She's just trying to talk you into something that you don't want or won't want after you be a part of it." And she said something else to me, but I'm not going into the whole story. I'm just saying that's been going on even 20 years before that. It started in the early 1990s when they really started pushing CRT, critical race theory. And they were also doing that in the 80s. It started coming about. It was new in the 80s, the critical race theory. But the homosexual thing was gradually becoming more and more as time went by. And when they started making all these laws, it became the way of life. And then you had Clinton say, "Don't ask, don't tell," when it came to the homosexual agenda. And then it got to the point where now the people who were promoted were homosexuals only because of their gender. I mean, their decision to be homosexual, not because they did something good, but because they were homosexuals. And they got all these perks just because they were homosexuals. And then Trump came in and fixed it again. And those things shouldn't have to be happening. That's a curse against the United States of America. The homosexual invasion is against his word. Transgenderization is against his word. adoption against his word, racism against his word. Okay? Marxism, socialism, and Marxism is against his principles of truth because socialism teaches you that everything you have is somebody else's. And when you're poor, it doesn't matter. You don't have nothing. You're the only one that can benefit from socialism. It's the poor person that has absolutely nothing. I mean, truthfully, because then you get something from somebody one way or another. Maybe it's not enough because China, it's a socialist country and there's people starving to death there because they're rationing their food for their people because of having children. If they have more children, they have to pay higher taxes, and they get no benefit out of it. Okay, all the men want to have a son first, and when they have a daughter, they either get rid of them or send them somewhere else so they don't have to pay taxes for them. It's true. Now, I was talking to this one gal. She was from China, and she's here in this country now. This was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And we were talking, and she was telling me that she got shipped over here because her dad wanted a boy. And because they had her instead of the boy, if they kept her, then they couldn't have a boy without paying a whole lot more taxes. So they shipped her over here. And then she told me another story. Uh, uh, well, it wasn't a story. Her sister had a different name. It was a name in China, some kind of name that meant boy or girl. It was a dual name. And so they were feeding her, the one sister, as a boy. And after they found out 15 years later, 10 years later, that that was not a boy, they cut all the rations out for that girl because they give more for the boy than they do the girl. I mean, don't ask me why, that's just the way they do it. And they stand in lines and get food and all this different stuff, their handouts and whatever. I mean, socialism really does not work. The only people who benefit from socialism are the people who are running it. They're the ones who get all the perks, get the steaks, the ribeyes, and get the good everything. The ones at the bottom, well, they stay at the bottom and they don't go nowhere. They just stay right there and they're not allowed to have anything. But here's my big complaint and reason why I've got this going on here because they're teaching this stuff in schools and these children are coming out of school for the last 20 years becoming more and more anti-American. They want to stand up and fight with Palestine against the Jewish people and against America. They want to stand up against the enemies of stand up with the enemies of America and fight against America instead of standing for the country they're born and raised in. Why? Because they were taught that in the school system today. Train up a child in the way it should go. When he gets older, he will not depart from it. So if you teach him all this rhetoric and propaganda, I mean, schools have even tried to change history to make it look like America's no good, that the white people are no good, that everything they do is rotten and everything else, and everybody's oppressed by these people. That's not the truth. This is the only country in the United States that takes care of all of its people, the poor, the medium, and here's the bad part that I see. When people come here from another country under the Biden administration and go to California and all these places that are sanctuary cities, the people that live in those states get taxed more money to pay for those people. That's why Pritzker, I live in Illinois, that's why Pritzker has raised taxes so high in this nation because they have been giving medical aid, room and board, food, no taxes coming out of their pockets. Okay? and they're giving them uh, the what do they call snap things for food, and they're giving them licenses just like they're citizens of the United States. As a citizen of the United States, we can't get those things given to us. They get health care, everything. We have to pay for it. So when they come over here from another country and they come into this sanctuary city, it costs them billions of dollars to take care of these people. We're paying for it and we can't even afford that stuff. Go figure, right? But that's what I'm talking about. That's socialism. Okay? That's socialism in a nutshell. Right there. You as a person that works, lives, and and either owns property or rents in this United States can't afford to get all the things that they get given to them. You got to pay for them. A lot of people can't afford those things, not just a few, but a lot. And here's the problem. The school systems are the one pushing all this stuff because of 1962. There's no righteous leadership in the school systems anymore. So the curse is overtaking the blessings. There's no other way to look at it. The only way to reverse that is to get religion reinstated into the schools. It should be reinstated in K through 12 and not a mandatory but an elective where there is classes for those different age groups that teach them that want to learn. Some of the parents want schools that actually teach their children the Bible. That's the truth. Not some of them, a lot. Probably a lot more than you know, because otherwise these Catholic churches and these schools that are religion-based schools wouldn't be doing so well. They do well because the people pay the money. Now the problem with that is people who are living in poor, low income houses, they can't afford to go to another place. They can't afford to go to those schools. It should be available in all public schools. That's really what it should be because, you know, when they push that homosexual agenda and they got these guys dressed up like women reading stories, it desensitizes these children and they're being groomed to be acceptant to that way of life so that they don't reject it. Okay? Rejection. They don't want rejection. They want people to receive it so they can have more and more of their people and have a larger majority and a bigger agenda. That's the truth. I mean, look at the Muslims. They've been doing the same thing for years. They've taken over parts of London over there, or Britain, whatever you want to call it. The crime rate was through the roof. Women are being raped day and night, and they're starting their own laws. And then now they got people in office, and they're voting for the Muslims and voting against the original inhabitants of the land. And see, here in this United States, we have the same problem. Starting it is starting out. We got these mosques throughout the nation in places, and in Texas they're trying to make their own city. They're trying to make their own city. They bought great big swaths of land and they put a mosque in it, and they started making it private and they're making it their own city. Now the governor and the people in that state are fighting it. I don't know what's happened from that. Haven't heard much of it, but see, that's how come this nation. It's part of being under the curse because of taking out the word out of school and state. Once you start teaching the children against the state and the country and the nation, they're going to grow up and they're going to be anti-American. And a lot of them are. Look at all these groups out there that are attacking people for the right thing. They're not attacking them for the right reason, but they're attacking people for doing the right thing. Look at BLM and all those. That's all supposed to be because the white man's no good. You know that, right? Yet, here's the problem. BLM was an organization that's done nothing but, I mean, they haven't done anything for the black folks, period. Even Obama, he was a black man, right? He didn't do nothing for the black people at all. he put a wedge between them. So you understand what I'm saying? The things that are being taught in school need to be changed. You need to get rid of the homosexual teachers that are pushing that stuff on the children. And I went to a junior high school where I was attacked by homosexual counselors and stuff. It's in my book. I wrote my book. It's in there, and it's a terrible part of my life. I didn't finish school because of it at all. I mean, I had to go get a GED, you know? So I'm telling you, that stuff's been around a long time, and now it's even worse than it is. And the children are being predatorized. The children who are timid and shy, the children who they can persuade to cut their parts off and become another sex, the children who aren't standing up and hitting them in the face when they say stuff that's not right. You know, there's so many things going on in this nation, and if the children are being indoctrinated to become anti-American, this America's not gonna it's not gonna be here very long. We're celebrating the 250th year, but you know what? There won't be another 50 if it keeps going the way it's going. I mean, think about it. Everything that the Democrat Party pushes, anti-American agenda. They want to lift up these people and uh, not prosecute criminals, but they want to go after righteous folks who stand up for the truth. Okay, that's backwards. They stand up for the abortions, for transgenderism, abortions, racism, CRT, you know, racism. That's just racism on steroids with a different twist. And then you got all those things going on where they're trying to make it to where boys are able to be playing girls' sports and just a conglomeration of things that the Democrat Party is pushing. It's anti-American. And here's another thing. The Democrat Party is trying to get rid of their own voter base by bringing in all these illegals and giving them voter cards. Now, if you go to another country from America, you can't go to Mexico or any of these other nations in the world and get room and board paid for, your food and lodgings basically paid for, or health insurance or a voter card or cars. You just don't get that handed to you right there. As a matter of fact, you go to Mexico and you're an American, they can't wait to bend you over and rape you to death and take every penny out of your pocket. There's nothing good about there if you're an American. Well, if you know a bunch of Spanish people down there, it might be different. But if you're a tourist, you don't know anybody, you're considered a victim and they're just looking to predatorize you. That's almost every nation on this earth. Almost every single nation's like that against the American people. Because it's a wealthy country. It's been always stood for the right thing, and there's always been people going places and disappearing. You see what I'm saying? But we have to make the change in the schools now. If you don't change the school systems and get rid of that garbage and start allowing Bible teachings in the schools for the different grades, and have a teacher teach them, or at least read to them, or allow them to read in class and talk about it. And I'm not talking about Muslims, I'm talking about Christianity, or I should say even Messianic. Because I'm going to tell you right now, anybody who says Muslims is a faith is wrong. It's a cult. It's a death cult. That's not even up for discussion. Okay? They are all about overtaking and controlling and ruling. That's why Trump has made a stand that every single president said that they shouldn't be become nuclear. Yet Obama, who was a Muslim, started the process. He went and made a treaty with them, and then he gave them $150 billion of our money every year to make it happen. so they could become a nuclear power because they believe they're going to heaven for killing all the people that are not Muslim. Okay? So there's so many factors to look at, but right now I'm telling you, the Democrat Party is not your friend because they're voting in everything that's immoral, illicit, and wrong. They're not standing up for righteous things. Matter of fact, the TV channels are doing the same thing. ABC, NBC, CBS, and all those channels that have been around a long time. When a story comes up where a black man is hurt or a black woman is hurt and it's a white man that had the confrontation, they'll push that to death. But when a black man goes and kills a white woman on a train just because she was sitting there, cuts her throat open, and she bleeds out, those channels don't say nothing about that. They didn't say a thing about it. ABC, CBS, NBC. And then it goes in the newspaper on the back page without anything saying about color, race, or creed. But when it's the other way around where a white man does something, man, they put the white man attacked the black man and he did this, he did that, and it riles the people up. But they don't do that when it's the other way around because they're pushing a narrative of racism that's caustic, deathly caustic, caustic. And the reason why I say that is because I've watched it. I mean, if you used to watch Fox and you would see the things they would report years ago, they would report the news. They wouldn't sit there and hide it. They would report it the way it was. Well, CNN and NBC and MSNBC and ABC, CBS, and all these other channels that they were carrying the water for the Democrats. They wouldn't push that agenda. Only time they'd go all overboard is when it was to fit their narrative that the white man was no good. Maybe it's because that, well, that sells papers or that makes people watch. But what it does is cause a chasm in this nation. But the bottom line is train a child in the way it should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's why you teach him right ways and proper morals. Not racism, not homosexualism, not race baiting, not transgenderism, and definitely not to hate your fellow man. And definitely not anti-American. And they do. They teach that and push that. Them teachers nowadays should not be teachers because all they are is propaganda pushers and bad doctrine enforcers. They don't, a lot of them don't teach the truth. They don't teach history. They'll put history in there, but they'll put in all this anti-American stuff. Do you know that in the schools they were teaching the children that Thomas Jefferson was a queer? That's exactly how they said it. He was a queer. Do you know Thomas Jefferson had about 50 or 60 illegitimate black children? How can a queer do that? He just didn't get married, so he was queer. But yet he wedded basically because when you marry a woman, that doesn't mean you speak it out. It means you consummated that relationship. So in reality, he married a whole lot of women. They just weren't white. But you see what I'm saying? He didn't have no background of marriage. Benjamin Franklin, they said the same thing about him. Okay, they were queer because they weren't married. But yet Jefferson has a lot of children. Okay, he's got a large legacy of children after him. I don't know who they are. I'm just saying that's facts. It said he had children with most of the women that were working at his place, and he treated them like family, not slaves. When he died, there was all kind of problems that went on. He left everything to them. He did. He really did. So I'm telling you that people twist these stories to make them sound worse than they are to make a certain agenda happen. For instance, slavery. Think that's another one. Just slavery in general. Okay. Now to hear it talked about and shown, even in that movie Roots, okay, it shows the white people going to that country and chasing down a bunch of black folks and beating them and hurting them and shooting them and maiming them and throwing them on the boat. You know, that's not the way it happened. That's not the way it happened at all. Matter of fact, it started because the leaders of that nation in different villages and coastal nations, or what do you want to call them, cities, they themselves sold their own people to the slavers. That's it. I mean, they sold them for flour, okay, for wheat and maybe animals, just whatever was available. They bartered them away, and then they brought them over here and sold them. They were already slaves there. And see, if you're talking to a person who's a racist, they're not going to tell you that. And they're also not going to tell you that the largest plantation slave owner in this United States of America at one time was a black man. He had more slaves and 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 indentured servants that were black just like him than anybody. You won't hear that. You won't, because it doesn't fit their agenda what they're saying. Now, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying the story has been changed to fit a narrative to make it look worse than it is. And right now in this United States of America, America's jumped off that cliff and it's still free falling. One day it's just going to kaboom. And it's coming, because look at what they're doing in this nation. They're anti American, anti police, anti law and order. They want the criminals to survive and thrive. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting them out on the streets, and they wouldn't be kowtowing to all that instead of taking care of the right things that are supposed to be. And then they're voting in Muslim leaders that are going to be a curse to this country so bad. Unless they're a part of it, they're going to end up getting killed. Just straight out murder. I even got a belief that if we ever get attacked by a country or another nation anywhere in this world, I believe the Muslims here will probably fight with them against us. And there's probably already sleepers here from these other nations in case something happens. I know it sounds like something out of a TV show, but where do you think those TV shows come from? Some of it's reality in disguise. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I mean, I don't believe in a lot of those conspiracies that people are pushing unless there's valid, factual evidence and proof that prove them. And conspiracies are just that, they're not proven fact. So that's why I'm telling you this now, because we need to transform the schools back into an American taught institution instead of anti American, gay, transgenderized, anti racism. I mean, all that. They're pushing that stuff in the schools. And the children are coming out and joining up with the Palestinians against the American people, against the Jewish people, against people who are born and raised here. Then they're standing up with the Islamic death dealers. And they're being radicalized and attacking our own country because they're being taught to hate America. And because they're not allowed to share the scriptures in school, but yet they can sit there and pass around a book that tells them to have sex with the same gender. I'm saying that because that's what happened. Now, I understand they put laws against that anymore. They're not allowed to have those books in schools. Whether they're still doing it or not, I don't know, but that was a fact. So I say instead of having that in schools, let them put the Bible in schools. Not the Quran, but the scriptures that were manufactured and made from the King James Version, or the original scriptures, the Hebrew writings, the Mosaic writings, and the Messianic writings. Okay? Because if you teach your children wrong, they're going to grow up and be wrong. That's why there's curses going on in this nation because of the breakdown of the family is all part of that curse. It is. No family structure, no truth. Children are being raised by single parents. Just think about it. Put your children in a school, or try to get your school to put in, your children's school to put in Bible studies from a messianic teacher or a Christian teacher, not Quran and not Muslim or Islamic, because that's against the foundation of America. They are here to destroy America. They are here to destroy you as a Christian if you're a believer. And if you're not a believer, they're still here to destroy you. That's what the Muslims do. Look at their history. The facts are historical facts. Okay? I'm gonna go. I hope you glean something out of this. I hope you understand the importance of teaching our children properly and right. I hope you understand the future does not look bright when our children are being taught socialism, anti Americanism behavior, Marxism, etc., etc. They're voting in people who are un American, who are pushing their own Islamic faith and standing up and cursing the Jews in public. And look at Dearborn, Michigan. You got that guy up there, Abdul El Said, who's a Muslim. You got Hassan Piker, who has a following of children that are American because he speaks the same thing they were taught in their schools. That's why they're listening to him. He said that America deserved 911. Okay. Look at these numbers. New York has 724,000 people that are Muslim registered. That's just registered. That doesn't mean there's probably more. California shows 504,000. Illinois 473,000. New Jersey 321,000. Texas 313,000. That's not just a few people. That's quite a few. That's a big, in one city in a voter block that can destroy an entire city. You understand that, right? And look at what happened in New York. They voted in a Muslim as mayor of New York. Think about that. And look what he's doing. He hadn't done nothing good for people yet. And the people who were backing him were American, young Americans. Hassan Piker, his group that's listening to him are all college age students. Why is that? They're Americans. Why is that? Okay? Teach a child in the way he should go, and when he is older, he will not depart from him. They've been teaching him anti American behavior in grade school on up, and then this guy comes in here and he becomes a voice against America. He shouldn't even be here. He should be somewhere else. Let him go to another country and push that stuff. He shouldn't be here. Not not as an anti-American spokesman, but you see what I'm talking about, right? I mean, I hope you see it. Study it out. Look at it. Historical facts don't lie. Not to mention what's going on in the world is a pure indication of it's only going to get worse, folks. Anyway, you take care. You have a good one. We'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.